No, I was actually trying to find the uh, the meeting window because Teams for whatever reason has two windows. One that's like the
Mhm.
meeting window, and the other one's like whatever this is. I don't.
Mhm.
At any rate, um, okay, so this will be stuff that we. This will
Yep,
be
I
this will
remember.
tie to whatever you just set up in Docker, right? So I have
Yep.
my dev-shr instance running in Docker. So
Yep.
that's what
I
I'm
remember
using here.
remember setting all that stuff up on the instance that I actually set up on my computer or on the
Hmm.
Hyper-V as well. So I do
Okay.
remember all that.
Okay. Um, so once what this provisions with is just a very basic, like there's some information for the application itself, like a unique
Hmm.
identifier, name, publisher, that kind of stuff, right? So the manifest essentially.
Hmm.
And then it adds this very basic page extension. So this is basically saying, you know, uh, find the customer list page, and when the page opens, pop up this message that this app has been published successfully, right? So
Okay.
that's kind of the hello world. And at this point, you can theoretically hit F5. You'll notice there's some red squiggly pages right here. So it's basically saying that customer list doesn't exist. And
Okay.
that's because the way that these things work is that it has what are called symbols. So it'll download information from your environment about what is already installed,
Hmm.
and then it'll light up basically an IntelliSense. The first time
Okay.
you hit F5, it'll just implicitly download those symbols. So in theory, if I've not screwed something up in one of my environments, just hitting F5 should. Of course, it did not. What did it say?
Let me
Your
plug my
program
headset.
license has expired. Oh, sweet. Of course it has. Okay, hold on one sec. Let's see. Admittedly, this is also one of those things. I'm not entirely sure how this is supposed to work if you're not actually a partner. Um, there is some basic license already installed with these that can do some stuff, but not everything with. We have partner licenses that we can configure. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
Shoot, I probably it's gonna take me a second to actually build this, but that's basically the process, right? So at this point, if my environment were working properly, you would hit F5 on this. It would download the symbols, compile the package, deploy the extension, and then in the launch, you have specified, startup object ID 22 actually happens to be the customer list, so it would have opened immediately to that page and popped up my
Okay.
message.
So whenever you do that, it actually opens it up instantly on the instance over there, or like, so let's say you actually compiled and ran this, for example, over
Mhm.
on your BC instance. What would you do from that point?
So in the BC instance, for dev, you don't actually have to do anything. The F5 stuff provisions it. So at that point, it's already installed. It would show up in that extensions area that you were looking
Okay.
at.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Um, so I suppose my other question now is is all that stuff in the documentation that you had sent me,
Yes.
that basic like get started developing page, like just different things that I can call and things like that, and different ways to do certain things.
Yep.
Is there a chance that you can show me just exposing a basic function real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. See, there's probably several that are already exposed. So why don't we turn this back around again and you start showing your screen again? That way you'll have it
Uh,
working.
the only problem is I don't have this stuff installed. So
Well, okay. So let me think this through. I need to get an environment that will actually work. Give me 1 second.
mhm. Yeah, because I need to actually install Visual Studio Code and stuff.
Yeah, that would be do a custom one, but there are already functions exposed that you could look at least.
Right, right. Well, I mean, in our situation, I'm definitely interested in the custom.
Okay.
Um, That way I can develop it around, actually productizing this integration.
Sure. Or
So that's more what I'm interested in, the actual customized thing, exposing a custom function.
fair enough. Let me.
And if you can show me how to do that and get started like properly doing that, like show me an example, then that would be absolutely amazing, and I can go from there.
I think I signed up for Business Central on this one, didn't I? Business Central.
That's not good. All the construction people outside just took off running.
That's not good.
No. No.
Okay, so this is a demo tenant that I have.
Okay.
Assuming my you might get to watch it through the trial experience if this one also has expired. I don't think so. All right. Okay, so let's see.
I don't believe I had any trial information show up. And maybe that's because I installed it from a developer version or something.
Well, so this is an online trial. So if you go to like trials.dynamics.com, you can sign up for, I don't know, 30-day trial or something, and you can convert it to a paid one if you wanted to keep it around.
So we got approved as a Microsoft partner. Is that going in the right direction to get like a developer, like a actual developer system of this?
So I don't. Well, yes, is the short answer. I'm not exactly sure what hurdle you have to get over before they will give you. Because, like, so as a partner, like, I can actually go to, well, the name of the site has changed. It used to be demos.microsoft.com.
Mm-hmm.
And this is basically, yes, a cdx.transform or whatever. And then from here, I actually have the ability to spin up Office 365 tenants.
Okay.
The onboarding process for Business Central itself is a little bit of a pain. So you basically have to spin up some sort of demo Office 365 tenant and then log in as that tenant admin and go to trials.dynamics.com and sign up for a Business Central trial. But then you have a an online one that it'll last for, I don't know, 90 days usually. And then you get back to square one.
Which would be absolutely fine, really, in my instance. It's just there was about 6 different phone calls and everybody pushing you in kind of the wrong direction, trying to figure out how to even get access to this. And like I said, I think I just lucked out in finding the environment that I did. So
yeah, fair enough. A lot of this stuff, like we actually started out as well, part of us did. I started out in the GP space. So a lot of our like initial stuff with Microsoft happened well before any of this Business Central stuff. So
right.
it was a little bit easier. We had like actual people to go talk to that we knew already, So I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what the right process is for a new VAR.
Yeah. That's something I definitely need to explore further because I believe most of them just sent us to a sales team. So
yeah, that doesn't sound right. There is,
no.
I will say, like, there's partner.dynamics.com. That's,
okay.
I would think, a good starting point. I think because it has a bunch of stuff on there, like the benefits of becoming a partner and whatnot. So I got to assume someone on there is the right channel for becoming a partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me bookmark that real quick. Well, I mean, partner.dynamics.com really just brings you partner.microsoft, which
Okay.
I'm an approved Microsoft partner. I just don't know where to go from there, essentially, which is not necessarily part of the scope. I was just curious while you were setting things up. And we were waiting on things to load. Mostly just trying to optimize the time that we have here. And there's a couple of packages like a Microsoft Action Pack and stuff that you can buy when it comes to in there. And we did buy that. And support said it may be useful, may not be useful.
Well, honestly, let's see. You've talked to Brian, right? I can't remember. That could be Brian Wilton.
Which I don't believe so.
Okay.
May have.
'Cause
I'm
he's
really
the
bad
one who
at
connected
names.
me with you guys.
It may have
he-
been Rob that was speaking to him, our CTO.
Okay, yeah. Because Brian Wilton, I mean, he has a bunch of fairly good contacts at Microsoft as well, so he might be a better person to ask on that process. He'd probably at least point you in generally
Okay.
the right direction.
At the end of this, do you think you could fire off his email to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is usually actually faster than this. I'm not really sure why we're at less than a minute remaining. Let me back over here. I'm gonna change this then. Add my cloud. See what this does. So I'm explicitly downloading the symbols. So Control Shift P in Visual Studio is basically bring up the I guess it's the palette or whatever. So how this stuff is through there. So Control Shift P and then there's a bunch of AL commands. Now I'm going to enter my credentials for that development environment. And we'll see if it yells at me because let's see, it would be this one. We'll see if it, like I said, I believe it yells at me because I don't know. Oh, it did. Okay, so the sandbox is done.
Okay.
So I'm assuming I'll get a response back here that is good at some point. It's definitely a little slow. Okay, yeah. So symbols have been
Awesome.
downloaded. Yay! So now, in theory, if I hit my F5, then we'll get the experience I was talking about before. So
Okay, awesome.
let's see here. Okay. This is
Just
basically
yeah, you
saying
may have to
get the
just
one
change
from
your.
one place. Yeah,
Okay.
this one. Language. For some reason, apparently they're not forward compatible. Which I guess makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
More so than not being backward compatible.
Backwards compatibility is pretty useful.
It is, yeah.
At least it seems pretty easy to actually switch to the newer version of things. Is there any issues with is there frequent issues with upgrading your versions and porting it to a newer version of the AL language?
I wouldn't say so, no. What is that about? Did I actually install it? Yeah, so this is the newest one. Go away. Supposedly, you're going to have multiple of these installed simultaneously, but it has not been experienced that works very well.
Okay.
Tends to get very confused about which one it is that you actually wanted to use. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, since they're adding stuff, you mostly just install the new the SIX, and usually if there is something that's sort of fundamentally changed, it'll more or less tell you that you need to, please add this section to your launch config or something like that. You're like, oh, okay. So yeah, I would say in general, it's pretty painless.
Okay.
Going the other direction is much less true, because there are a lot of times you're like, oh, this whole thing that I needed doesn't exist.
But hopefully the core functionality of like what I'm trying to do on a basic level should exist across multiple versions in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's the other reason why, to some degree, I sort of suggest that you guys do your own code unit, is because you will have a lot more control over behavior. I mean, obviously, it requires you to have more domain knowledge, but it also means that like you can branch on version and all these other kinds of things, right? That you would be able to do natively through the web services.
Right, which is what you're showing me right now in this regards, like to like writing a custom expose function instead of ones that are already exposed, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So
okay.
Here is that was it. So exciting. So we got to the cover page, and before it opened, it popped up that error message.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it popped up the hello world. If you pop over to the setup and extensions, how do you fire that off again from this page, or can you?
You set up an sorry, which part?
Oh, if you go back on your actual BC instance where you just were.
Oh, sorry. I closed it.
Oh, that's fine. More so, you can answer it without showing me. Basically, if you went up to the setup and extensions part, basically the extensions page on BC, can you like just click on that extension and have it launch again, or how does that work?
Oh, so it's yeah. So it's implicitly loaded, right? So the extensions just kind of become part of the actual application. There's no launching it. In this particular case, we added a pre-trigger to the customer page. So literally every time I navigate to the customer list, it'll fire that trigger.
Okay, awesome. That's what I needed to know.
Well, oh wait. I'm not in the sandbox.
Right, that's absolutely fine though. That's answered my question.
Okay.
I just wasn't really sure how to, set up or fire off those extensions, but that makes sense. So can you show me an example of something like more than just like a hello world? Can you show me like exposing a custom function rather than like exposing or like using one that's already exposed?
So I'm gonna get rid of this little world file, and I'm gonna add another file. Simple codeunit. .al. The other thing, and this is also documented, but it's a bunch of code snippets. So if you type T and then like kind of the thing you're trying to do, it generally brings up a snippet. So if I want to write a code unit, which is kind of one of those functions, then this is going to say, all right, here's kind of just a very basic. This is what happens. So I can say, well, the other thing too is actually so Nav has like this like antiquated numeric system for tracking everything, or Business Central does, right? So like every piece of code has to have its numeric ID, and there's a lot of like, so this again is part of fully vetting this out. Like at some point you will want to work with Microsoft to get your own ISV range. And then that will allow you to publish things like through AppSource so people can install it, and you don't have to handle like managing the fact that these code units are kind of shared with like every customization that they might be writing. So if they have an extent already with number 50,100, then yours just won't install until you change your numbers. So obviously long term, that's not you don't really want to be doing like on a one-off basis per client. Like you want to have something that's previously created.
Okay.
The other got you, without having that is also that the way that the deployment source for this stuff works. If you do build, basically, this is kind of like just like a, I'm working on my own, stuff for my own company or whatever. If I tried to publish this in a different tenant, it will actually tell me that I can't, because the app with this version has already been published. Even if completely unrelated, completely different customers, the publishing service basically is like all of North America. So if they're in another North American tenant, it'll be like, nope, you gotta increase version number. So that can be really confusing. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna actually, So back in the day, I guess, I don't know. Every code unit always ran something whenever you ran the code unit. But that's not really, we don't need that. We'll create our own function on here. So I will say, I'm going to create a procedure that says, I don't know, do something, right? I'm not super creative in a few seconds. And then maybe let's just say we'll do, we'll mess with customer as well. So I'm going to say, I'm going to grab my customer record of type customer. We'll do, customer dot find first, and then maybe we'll have something in here that says var, new name is string. 50, I think. And then we'll just say, customer dot name designed new name, and then another thing that I find, actually, this is probably should actually be doing this. I find this a little bit weird about the AL language, but there's actually, so the records themselves have business logic built into them, but you can kind of opt out of that by doing direct assignment and not calling triggers. So doing validate basically says, set the value of this table to name, but also run whatever validation logic should be run at that point. And customer modify, true is basically also saying, so when I save this, run the unsaved triggers also. The default is false, which is mind-boggling to me. So basically, like by default, it's not going to run any of the validation logic. But depending on your use case, that can be extremely useful because maybe you just want it to go in and you'll deal with the validation errors downstream. That's kind of how most of nav works, right? So because of that, most of the posting routines don't really assume that the data that's in there is any good. It basically revalidates things before posting. So that's good, but it also means that you don't necessarily always get a complete upfront error of like, oh, this customer is not good. You know what I mean?
So that makes sense. You're basically just going to change the name of the customer or the first customer that you find.
Right.
If you wanted to insert a new customer, what would that kind of look like?
So basically, let's see, and then it would be the same kind of idea. So basically, I don't really know. Init basically runs. There's some like on it triggers that can be relevant. I don't know that there actually are for the customer that are. It's just kind of best practice. So let's see. Let me think about this. So it's a little more complicated than this because in nav there's a bunch of nav number series. So the correct way to do this probably would be to look up the number series that's associated to customers on the AR setup and use the next number in the number series.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could just skip that.
But for our purposes, we'll say that the number is going to be equal to, that number. And then, the name will be. Right, it's the same idea.
Okay, so there's a customer.insert, and then I see. So there's like the dot modify true and dot insert true.
Right, there's a modify. There's insert, modify, and delete. Right.
Awesome. Okay. I'll be mostly probably using insert and delete rather than modifying. Okay.
But so now that we have our code unit does this oh so useful function, we can push this. Wait for it. I not delete that? Interesting. I guess somehow failed to delete that. Whatever.
I definitely seen you delete it.
I thought that's what I thought. I was like, I don't really know what happened here. Okay. At any rate, just wanted to make sure it actually did publish. So if you go to the web services area, it's going to have a list of things that are kind of already exposed, and you can expose code units, pages, or queries, and those are different types of objects that you can create in the designer. So pages are, like actually going to like the customer card and doing stuff. Queries would be like if you wanted to pre-write some sort of like, complicated query that you don't necessarily want to recreate, every time you need to use that particular view, and then you can just call it to get information pre-filtered. And then code units are what we were talking about in terms of exposing them from to be called. So you'll also notice that the pages and queries have OData URL ways of interacting with them, whereas the code units only have a SOAP call.
Right. Yeah, and for us that, we don't want to have to rely on a URL being hit. We want to be able to call the SOAP URL from our end. That way it fires off the invoice into PC.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was just saying for example, chart of accounts, you actually could use the OData query for update, right? So you could create a new a new account number through this OData URL, but you also SOAP. It's just a different protocol for doing it.
Okay.
That's all. So now that we have our code unit published, in theory, I should be able to hit new code unit in my number that we had our code unit, right? So here's my sample code unit.
Did that automatically pull that sample code
yeah.
unit?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the object name. Oh, and I do need to give it a service name. So code unit, same thing. And then notice that it actually copied this. So in the variety of methods that you can use to connect to web services on premises, but the online ones, basically you have to use these web API keys, which I don't. I did write this one. I think that's one. So I'll show you that in a second, but I think that'll work. Maybe not. Oh, I wonder if because I'm in a different order. I don't know. All right, well, let's just look. So if I go to my user list, here's my admin user. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what I generated the key from. That should have been it. But anyway, I will change my web service key. I'll just say this one never expired, and I have a key here. So that's basically my password. All right. Oh, I guess because it is because this is the sandbox. Okay, that makes sense. The other one I was doing for a use case, so I didn't use the sandbox. I used the actual org. So that's my. Okay, so just to kind of prove that it's already here, right? This is the WSDL. So at this point, to actually call this, then you would use like Visual Studio or something to add a reference to this, and then you could relatively easily build that up to call it with the new name built in. Which, I mean, I guess we can go through if you want me to, but
okay, so
that.
so this right here, the XML, okay.
Yeah, so this is
there's
the WSDL.
operation. Yeah, okay. I mean, we could step through it because we have a couple, we have about 12 or so minutes here. We could absolutely step through that real quick just so it's recorded and I can reference it just to make sure we have the full process.
Sure. Let's do new project. console. Sounds like a winner. Nope. I don't really know. I probably can do it in .NET Core too, but start with .NET Framework. I'm more familiar with that. All right. So service reference. I don't remember exactly if I have to navigate all the way to the code unit or if it'll give me ones at the let's do this. Actually just said that service is not found. All right, never mind. Let's do that. Just warning you that
Clear text or yeah.
yeah, it's going over clear
Straight.
text. Although it is HTTPS, on guys, not that bad. I do the. I think this might be case sensitive. All right, cool. So there's my do something function, my service reference. I'll add this. And this, right? Port client. Never understood the names on these things. Just let it do the default. That's fine. All right, cool. So now if I can remember how to set the credentials. Play. Nope. Never remember how to do this. Windows. Windows? No. Should be like. I always forget the part. Oh. No. That must be an old definition. Oh my goodness. A second. I think I have another example of this that I actually did somewhere. Really? After all that loading, you still didn't load it? What is going on?
Yeah, I've not seen that error before. So
What are you doing here? Close word? Oh. I minimized it somehow. All right, let's do this again.
oh. You're opening it in 2015 if that matters.
No, yeah, this is I'm trying to reference the project that I did before it did connect with SOAPs. I can remember how to actually set the credential on it. That's being really stupid if I'm running too much stuff at the moment or what. I will say this is the advantage of Visual Studio Code, at least in my experience. It doesn't take like 8 hours to open.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, actually opened. All right. Where's the SOAP one?
2019 is pretty fast, at least on my instance, but my development rig is a bit absurd.
One sec. Oh. Okay. I just didn't delve into that far enough. That's so stupid.
Username. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So username is read only, but username is settable.
That's an interesting sort of setup.
Good old SOAP. It's so intuitive. All right. Let's see. Password. All right. So client dot do something.
You're passing it a string or a text string.
Yeah, I just was curious as to why it was a. I did. That's why. Well, that's fine. Whatever. I don't need this. So this I forgot. This var basically means that this value is right. So like I could have set new name to something else in this function and it would have gone back out. So it's the same thing as a C# ref. So that's
Okay.
why it's a ref thing, but that's actually probably not necessary in this case. But so happy about. Oh, actually, I'll all right. So in theory, if this doesn't crash,
I believe it's because, yeah, so you got to change the authentication scheme from anonymous, I would say.
interesting that. Okay.
It's probably like a normal instead of authentication. I mean, instead of anonymous.
Yeah, basic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All wondering why that would have been the case though. That's just setting the endpoint address. That should have been in the actual like.
It very well could be in the service reference.
It should have been in the binding though. I guess that's the. Yeah, this does look like it's missing. Where's my binding? Sure enough, it did not put that in there. All right, so.
That's awesome. I'm glad we decided to go through with this because it's definitely going to make things a little bit easier on my end. A little bit less trial and error.
Whoops.
Using your background knowledge to kind of give me an intro in this.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see if this actually works this time. Hey,
there we go. Hit the breakpoint. Awesome. So
right. Now let's just prove this all out. In theory, nope.
That the first name should be my cool name on, or you should have a my cool name somewhere in there.
Yeah, by number, I think, 'cause that's the default word. After we get our pop-up message on the list. Emma.
So why is it still telling you hello world?
Because I didn't republish it after deleting that file.
Okay.
So
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But there we go.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. That was exactly what I needed to know. Yes, absolutely. I highly appreciate that. Whenever this video sort of goes live and gets pushed to the cloud or wherever it's saved, if you wouldn't mind sending it across to me so I can reference it, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I think you should be able to get to from the meeting in Teams, but if not, let me know. I will pull it down and put it somewhere you can get it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
No problem. All righty. Talk to you later.
See ya. Thank you.
All right.